Well, here I am back again, Keith Hayes, with a nice bright morning, and it's going to be even nicer as the day wears on. As things started to take over from us in as the morning progressed, and it. As we all a bit behind this morning, but we've got our act together, and we are going to make sure that we delve into this question of the North Street Quarter again. It's what we're doing is that. It's Stuart Dalby is going to join us in a minute, by the way. That's why his name has just gone up there. What we're going to do is we've had two guests on now. We have put out some feelers for other guests, and we've got one who says will appear in a week's time. And we've got several more that we've invited and haven't actually appeared. Now let's tell you what basically the rules of journalism are. Is we are duty bound, morally, not legally, but duty bound to seek a right of reply. In other words, we've had two people who have given various views. One from somebody who is going to be affected by it and doesn't like the whole idea, and one from a consultant to the project. And now we need to know what the politicians are saying. If they choose not to come on, we take that as either refusing a right of reply or they don't want to do a right of reply.
Or they've got something to hide.
Is indeed, the chances are that they have got something to hide. But we are doing what we are required to do, what is morally right to do, so that when you hear views expressed on this channel, is they are not just plucked out of the air. Sometimes in my rants, I pluck things out of the air. Because this is such an important issue to the community, it is done on, Stuart particularly has been doing a lot of background research and has got some material, and there are questions to be asked. If they don't want to answer them, then it's like a jury trial. The judge will say to the witness, if you choose not to testify, then the jury must draw its own conclusions. So that really is the situation with us, is if they choose not to appear and give testimony, then the jury must draw its own conclusions, and nobody has got the right to come back and say, but you didn't ask us. We're asking. And we have asked, and there is some reluctance on behalf of some sectors of the community. And as Stuart says, is it because we got something to hide? All right, well, let's kick off because, Stuart, you have been, well, first of all, I think it might be a good idea if you gave just a little précis of the two people that we have had on and what conclusions we've come to with the amount of information that we've got.
Well, the Human Nature Company, as for the people who don't know, proposed a development of 700 houses with all kinds of things involved, like cafes and gyms and all kind of things for young people. In fact, they want to build what, just to cut short, is a utopian green town in the old Phoenix area. They want to, that in short is what they want to do. This company, which is called Human Nature, which is a funny name to call a company, but anyway. And this involves all kinds of disruptions and obstacles and so forth and so on. So what we need to do is find out what kind of people are against it and why people want to do it and have it and support it. So where do we go from there?
Yeah. Would it be fair to say, Stuart, that the reflection that we are getting from the community is it's almost evenly divided between those people who think it's a good idea and those people who hate it, are appalled by it?
Well, I think yeah. Well, we can't talk about exact numbers. No, right. For example, one of the first objections is that human nature wanted to do something about the trees along the Phoenix and over the the Phoenix area. Yes.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, one of the officials of Human Nature said the old trees are wasted and so forth and so on, and therefore they need to be taken down. A disease and so forth and so on.
Yeah. Now, you've got an interesting statistic about trees and the amount of oxygen they pump into the air, haven't you?
Well, no. The thing about trees is that the old ones, take in carbon dioxide. They take it in. New trees don't. All right. Therefore, to actually get rid of the old trees gives us a real problem about carbon dioxide being taken in.
Recycling the air, in other words.
And apart from that, but also, so they said that we are going to do this. Then all of a sudden, a lady came up and said, "You can't." And then the picture, something appeared in the Sussex Express, saying that there was a response to this notion that they were going to pull down the trees, and the people who said they were going to pull down the trees said the person who's saying this doesn't live in Lewes, doesn't know what the problem is, and therefore, what? Right, the next edition, the woman came up. It says it's very clear. It's very strange that you said that the person who knows about this is not in Lewes. I live only about 2 blocks away from the Phoenix. Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, I do know a great deal about trees, and I know about so forth and so on. So this is against it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So then that's what comes up as a division, and she is saying you must not do this. And 85,000 people have actually amassed 180 signatures to not take down the trees. Okay?
Right.
And then Jonathan Smales, the head of the CEO of Human Nature, said that the trees are diseased and they had to come down. So that's where we are. But it seems that he's been outvoted enormously on this. Was the first problem, right?
Yes.
But then,
Stuart, have you seen, or has anybody seen evidence that these trees are diseased?
apparently, yes, specialists have been brought in. If you read this article, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
the reports are available.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's very important. I can say, I could stand up now. I can say to you, no, these trees aren't diseased, and I would have no clue as to whether they were or they weren't. But I can say it with such authority that perhaps people will believe me. So I'm just asking to make sure that any statement made by either side is backed up by data.
I think there was something about some kind of a caveat. I can't think what it is now. Right. Yeah, it's just tree health. In the application, the tree health in the area was given a score of good vast knowledge that the habitat provided trees would be lost under the proposed development. Also stated that there's been no evidence produced by Human Nature that any of the trees were diseased in danger of becoming.
Right. So
yeah.
I'm right.
Yeah.
There isn't evidence yet to support that statement.
Yeah.
Right.
And you've got other problems, you see, because some of the trees looking at that picture, right, are against 4 stories. Now, so those stories they are wrong. They shouldn't be there. They're eco houses, you know, and they're blocking all kinds of things, so on. So what? Well, one person who's really ahead of the people against lives opposite this, and one of those houses, 4 stories, block out all his sunlight.
Right.
Now the Pell's Pool, right? The great big buildings up above it. What do you think make of that? Pell's Pool. They can't. You know, the sun can't get on over the sun.
Yeah. So just very briefly, Stuart, because people can't see that picture. Just describe the picture you were looking at. Is those eco houses are? Describe them for us.
Well, they're great long, 4 stories, eco houses, right up. And there are blocks. There are blocks of houses. They look like prison books.
Right,
They really do. They're brown sort of prison blocks.
These are existing, or they're planned.
They're made. And then you've got all kinds of things about affordable housing, and goodness gracious, that this can go on forever.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Me.
We actually did ask Anthony Simpson. What was Anthony? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anthony Simpson about this, and as I recall, his reply was that a lot of that housing, the affordable housing, will actually be for rent, so that people who can't afford to get on the building ladder will still have an opportunity to move into them. Is that correct? Is that
there's all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
Affordable housing is a very, very funny thing. When I was head of a charity in London called Friends of Worm and Scrubs, the green space behind the prison, my job was to actually stop inappropriate development on the green space. Sidek Khan Mayor came up and he said, we are going to build affordable housing around the boundaries of the thing. And I said, well, what do you call affordable housing? He says, 60% of the market price. And I said, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I think you're bonkers. These people live in Harlesden, in Ealing. They haven't got 60% of whatever it is.
Yeah.
They've got 60% of nothing. They're poor.
Yeah.
And so forth. And this is the same thing obtains here. If we're talking about affordable, the big question with this, Keith, is affordable for who? Right?
Yeah.
So the human nature came up with a thing about the 26,000 is the average income in Lewes. Therefore, okay.
All right.
Therefore, they could have they could buy an affordable house. In fact, right?
Yeah.
But supposing the people have an income of 21,000 because they're on the lowest incomes, they wouldn't be able to get a mortgage for a house. And they haven't taken any bloody notice of that at all. So that's another thing. It's like the energy prices, people are too poor to actually to do the thing. Yeah. So there's that. Then there are all kinds of other things that I can't think what they are now, but there are all kinds of objections and so forth and so on.
Right. So what having heard from 2 people on this station, and I mean, obviously, in doing your research, you're starting to talk to an enormous number of people. So you're going to actually be a mine of information about this product. You said that it would seem as about 50-50 of those for and those against. But what's your general opinion? Is would you actually think that the wind is in the sails of those against or for?
Well, as far as I can see, the people protesting against are quite considerable. But on the other hand, you've got the entire green community, whatever that may be, saying, no, this is a very, very good idea. because the industrial estate needed. Everybody agrees that the industrial estate, something should have been done about the industrial estate. But when it comes to sort of the entire environs about which it gets a bit more complicated, because the Greens will come up with all kinds of green reasons why this project should go ahead. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you get into a political situation, because how would the Greens do this? I mean, what would they say? Why should we support this? Because they're greenhouses. Well, greenhouses, for God's sake, and it gets very, very difficult to know, isn't it?
Is there an overall figure put on this project? In other words, it's a £10 million project or a £50 million project, or
this is the whole issue. I know a bit about money, don't I? I've got a company of my own, right? And if you could, Human Nature is a limited company, right? It has to have accounts, right? And it has to actually have accounts and results. There it goes. But I can't find a company house. I can't find anything where we've got accounts of Human Nature. So I wonder where they're getting their money from. Now, one of the people who are protesting against it said they had a project up in Doncaster, and he said he thinks he got the money through green subsidies and other kinds of grants and so forth and so on. And I thought maybe here that one of the shareholders in Human Nature possibly have got charities, or what shall we say, centres or charities or things like that. Some kind of charities, and people give money to charities, and maybe that's what's happening. But I wouldn't be sure. But I can't find any accounts, and that's very, very odd. What we have found is something about the previous Human Nature. They had a company before that called Beyond Green, and that went into voluntary liquidation, administration. Yeah. So that doesn't all go well for Human Nature, I don't think. But that's just.
Did you get the feel from talking to Anthony Simpson that because I specifically asked him about the money, and he seemed fairly confident that they were going to realise it. But it's sitting at the very beginning of this project. Do you think they're going to raise the money?
I got a feeling. I got a feeling they haven't got the money. But he said, I asked him another thing, and he said, "Oh, we've had 3 rich people in Lewes who gave us a start, and we bought the land and so forth and so on." And I thought, I'm beginning to wonder now, who are these people? I can think of 2. And also, I just keep saying to where are the accounts? Why can't I see them? Why? Well, I went to one of the meetings, and I kept saying, where are the accounts? How much? When I did ask somebody, I said, well, what is the entire cost going to be? I said, I can't tell you. So I'm very, I don't want to, I don't want to, be sued for libel or anything, but I would really like to be able to find out where the money is.
I mean, what we're doing is we're casting reasonable doubt on what the proposal the developers say that they're going to do. But we did get from the horse's mouth, Mr. Simpson, and he admitted that they weren't sitting in a vault with lots of cash. Is that this is going to have to be raised. But he also sort of made the point is, this is how all big projects are developed. Now, is that the case?
Presumably. I mean, developers, very venal people, they usually got loads of money, haven't they?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, is there any indication that they're going to stick money into this?
Well, yeah, that's the big $64,000 question, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's not. That's not the big question. $64,000 is have they got the money? And if they have, let us know where it comes from.
Yes, exactly.
But they don't seem to want to do that, do they?
Well, I suppose that in some ways that's understandable in a business sense. But the fact is that this particular project has a very high public profile, and you can't really sort of go around saying, "Well, I'm not going to tell you because it's my business, my affair, as it were." So I think that they're going to find that they're in a bit of a dilemma as they go along with this thing.
But then I just return to this whole thing about the Green Party being different from the Green Party. All the projects they're involved in seem to me to be an absolute mess.
Yeah.
So perhaps they're giving some money to human nature.
Well, if they are, I would assume. I mean, the Liberal Party locally can't have much money, or the Green Party for that matter. So what they've got to do is to untap some money from somewhere.
Yeah. Well, there must be some benefactors. I mean, the depot was built by benefactor, wasn't it? And also the building in the railway line. What is that called?
Right.
The rotunda, isn't
it? The something centre. The Linklater Centre.
Linklater Centre. Linklater. He's a he might have a few bobs there. And your other friend, who's that? Peter.
Peter.
Oh,
right.
Well, I asked him. He said no. He said it's a bloody mess.
I'm
not going anywhere near.
Well, strangely enough, I bumped into Peter yesterday afternoon.
And it was the same question.
And I said, Peter, you're welcome to drop by any time. He said between 8:30 and 11. So, and he was on here for a day, of course, and we went through his background and a fairly distinguished career. And Parker Penn's being only part of it in many ways. Is where do we go next with the North Street quarter, Stuart? Because what we've done this morning really is we posed more questions than we've provided answers, and it's not up to us to provide answers anyway.
No.
What we've got to do is to lay the foundation for people to come
and give us
their.
There's been 2 Saturday meetings, one was about 20 people, and the second one apparently was more crowded, and then we're now waiting for 26 when the final application goes in. People have got to put their application in by the 26th, right? Right. So we're waiting for that.
Right.
But I've got a funny feeling in my bones that they ain't got the money.
Well, I mean, if in fact this one comes to a sticky end, the fact is that whether it's their fault or whether it's the fault of previous councils, is the present local governance is stuck with the issue, isn't it? I mean, something's got to happen to this land. They can't just leave it sit there.
Well, they've left it for a long time.
Well, yes, they have, but they kicked out a number of people, didn't they, to make room?
Well, no, this is the third company that's tried to do it because the second one didn't have enough money to do the flood reserves, and that's another point, you see.
Right.
Well, I was talking to one of the councillors of the town council, and she said, "Oh, this is a town issue. Get your facts straight," she said. And I said, "Well, no, you get your facts straight. This is not a town issue. There's a river there called the Ouse, and it intends to flood. Sometimes it floods. It might flood in Newhaven. It might flood in Alfnell. This is a district issue. It's not a town issue."
No, that's absolutely right. Okay. Well, now let us publicly say that we have asked and continue to ask, and Stuart is very active amongst the community for people to come and give us their views. This television station is open to them, and the group that is lacking so far in showing any enthusiasm for that is the political perspective, and that worries me a little bit because in the long run, is they have a big input into what happens down there.
Well, agreed, and exactly. But as we spoke earlier this morning, politics is an absolute chaos at the moment. And then again, in the Sussex Express last week, there was an article which said that the National Party up in Westminster has told the local party here that they mustn't join any coalition with the other two parties.
Yeah.
Okay? Therefore, the Greens, the Labour Party is out of it. So we've now got the Greens with 17 seats and 15 for Lib Dems. Now, the leader of the Lib Dems, James Cleary, a very fine fellow, he said, look, we've had a very good coalition for the past 4 years, and that has been the case. This last year, it's been Imogen Makepeace, I think, has been in charge for the Greens. The year before that, James was in charge.
Right. So
they alternate each year, you see. But now that the Conservatives have been completely wiped out of the arithmetic,
right.
Well, what's going to go? So James said, I would see, I will confirm this morning because the representative of the party down where I live, and I confirmed him. I said, well, what is the situation, James? Are you having a conversation? Are you having a coalition? So I understand it. He's approached them and said, can we have another coalition like we had before? And it seems that the Greens, right? I wouldn't say definitely. It appears that the Greens haven't said yes at the moment, and the talks are ongoing.
See, I'm torn. Is between seeing a merger, which if that happens, there's no opposition, so we're going to get bad governance. But by the same token, if you get two people who are going to have a lot of infighting, it's going to stop development of the whole bloody project.
It's quite so. But you see, if the fact it doesn't go ahead, and the Greens, as the paper said, right, Labour block the alliance deal. So that means that there's no opposition, as you say, and the Greens, right, will be, and there won't be a coalition. The Greens will be effectively a one-party state. Now, look what happened when that happened. You had a minority company, and they were a disaster.
Yeah.
They couldn't even get a recycling thing going.
Yeah.
I mean, I went into Barclays. I go into Brighton many occasions just because Barclays got a branch there. You can speak to people. And I went there one day, and there was a bootload of people chained to the door. And I said, well, can I go in? They said, well, not unless you give up your Barclays account, because Barclays are supporting fossil fuels. BP, right? Or PP. And then I said, okay, fine. Well, if I give up, I don't owe them much money. It's only £8. Can I go in? He says, all right. And then I came out and I said, look, I have been writing about renewable energy for many years now, and before that, about oil companies. And I can tell you, without fear of contradiction, that there has not been enough investment in renewable energy to meet the energy mix. That means for the next few years, you're going to have a bridge, a gas bridge if you're lucky, an oil bridge if you're unlucky. So I wouldn't say sort of lock yourself and hang about there and catch a cold. I'd go home if I were you. I'd forget the word fossil fuel. And then anyway, so then you got this terrible problem with what you know. And then when I left that out, I walked in. I found a green councillor, very nice guy, David Griffin, I think his name was. And I said, you're not very popular in the town. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, all these people on the streets. He said, oh, well, out of the top 10. I said, well, that's not much of an achievement, is it? You know, you're only 11 people on the streets.
Now, Stuart, it is 1 minute past 10, so perhaps we can get you to switch your hats, because I don't think there's much more that we can do about North Street except to say that any politician that is viewing is, we want you to come on. We want you to explain yourself, and that you've been offered the right of reply, and if you don't actually take it up, then people can draw their own conclusions. But Stuart is also, of course, our energy expert, and there's a bit happening in that field too in the last little while. So, Stuart, what is it
Right.
to heat our freezing bums?
Right. Well, it's very, very interesting, really, because, we've been talking about the gas, the gas stuff. The energy crisis, essentially, is all about the gas price. Okay?
All right.
Let me find my white paper. Right. That one. And that. Okay. It's all been from beginning to end. Well, no, let's go again. I've been through this many years. There's been energy crises before. In fact, in 1972, when the coal miners went on strike, there became a crisis. Coal miners went on strike because there was a shortage of energy because there was no coal. Right?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So
That's really all the time.
That cost Edward Heath his jobs, and then they discovered there was lots of gas in the North Sea. So time passed, and people, the energy companies, were just putting the price where they saw fit. Okay. When Mrs. Thatcher got into power in the late 70s, in the early 80s, she privatized the energy companies. And this led to an oligopolistic cartel of 6 big companies. They were British Gas, English, EDF, French, npower, German, E.ON, German, SSE, owned mostly by Spaniards. No, sorry. Scottish Power, mostly owned by Spaniards, and SSE, British. So, for starters, a lot of money is going out to these foreign countries. Okay? And then, this cartel, right, Ed Miliband, in this situation, Ed Miliband was leader of the, I think this was about 2012, was a leader of the Labour Party, and he said, if I got into power, I would bring in an energy cap. He didn't get into power in 2015, David Cameron did. And he was totally spooked by the idea of an energy cap. And he asked his mergers and authorities, mergers and companies, what to do. Mergers and acquisitions company, what to do. They said, find cheaper suppliers. Well, there weren't any around at that stage, but they kept a bunch of chancellors and people decided to have an energy situation in their garage and so forth and so on. So they came along. About 50 of those were cheaper. So like British Gas would actually say the energy cap will be £1,000 a year, right? But Tinker Gas would actually do it for £900. So the companies that would set their thing just below the energy caps, or what they thought the energy cap was going to be. So David Cameron didn't do it, but in October, let's think now, I think it was October 19, Theresa May brought in the first energy cap, and that was set twice a year. 1st of April and the 1st of October. And that was set by the regulator, the Ofgem, not a very effective overall. So they set an energy cap of, let's say, £1,400 a year. That's the cap which people could charge, which a company could charge, right?
Yeah.
And that seemed all right. People could afford that. But then in October, it might go up by another 600 quid, 2,000 quid. Therefore, you are bordering into fuel poverty. People couldn't afford 2,000 quid. Therefore, the energy cap wasn't working because the Big Six cartel had set their tariffs just slightly below the energy cap. Just, you with me? You set their cartels to say not 2,000 with the energy cap. I'd say 1,950, right?
Yeah.
And they went forward by that, and then it went on and on and on. And it was all because, first of all, there was a shortage worldwide of gas.
Uh-huh.
But then Mr. Putin put his big oar into it, and he actually controlled gas supply for most of Western Europe. Right. Germany, 40% of its gas came from Russia. France, 25% of its gas came from Russia. And obviously the price is going up all the time. And I think it came down to us where we only got 6% of our gas from Russia because we had gas in the North Sea of our own. But it wasn't how much gas we got, it was the price that was going up all the time and time and time. And then finally, it got absolutely unsustainable because the Ofgem changed the low post and said, we're going to have an energy cap every 3 months. So every 3 months they put it up to what was it? Let's say it was 2001, 2000 something. Anyway, it went to 3,000, and it was going to look like it would go to 4,000 quid, which nobody could afford, so forth and so on. So what to do? Well, nothing happened at that stage because, very fortunately, the gas price started falling. And then, quite recently, G7 and EU to heap pressure on Russia with ban on reopening gas pipelines. That means that the gas supply has come right down, and it's come down to below £2,000, which is what we've got now. See, but what was happening before was that when the gas pipe was set, cartels used to get this money coming in. And what did they do with the money? They didn't buy gas with it. They actually, British Gas, right, let me give you an example. At the beginning of 2022, January to June the 30th, British Gas had a gross profit of 1.3 billion. Okay? Of that 1.3 billion, the CEO, Chris Shea, got a £2 million annual salary. All the other 5 got at least £1 million, and all the shareholders had their shareholdings doubled. This was gross profiteering. And that's the situation we're in now. Fortunately, the situation now, with the gas price falling, they are going to have to set a new energy cap, and our bills are going to go down. We're going to have to, which is good news.
Right. So it's a little bit of the crisis is past
For the moment.
For the moment.
Yeah.
And what is your? I mean, you really explained that it's an unsure situation. But what's your gut feeling? Is this going to be a continuing problem, or are we going to see a resolution?
Well, again, it always depends on market forces, doesn't it? If the gas price goes up, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
say, somebody shoots Putin, that might be a good idea. But anyway,
Yeah.
so you really don't know. At the moment, I think we can take some solace in that the people are preoccupied by other things. The other interesting thing in the energy sector is where's the paper? Just this. I know what I'm talking about. I just need to get the papers. Yeah.
Well, I think just while Stuart is getting his paper, is you got it? Yeah, you were sitting on it.
No, I was sitting on a picture of Bill Gates, which is quite a good thing to do. Well, the other thing about energy, of course, is the whole debate about nuclear. Some people don't like the idea of nuclear, but people like Boris and all the other people think it's a very, very good idea because it's grouped in the renewable sector. Well, if you think hard, it's not renewable, is it, nuclear? Because uranium is finite.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's assume that it is a renewable energy, right? So, part with wind farms, solar, we've got nuclear as renewables. Yeah. Now, Hinkley Point. I don't know if the thing about Hinkley power stations, nuclear power stations, that they're incredibly expensive,
Right.
and they're also very, very time consuming to build. Hinkley Point is 13 years behind what's it before.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But there is something else, you see, called an SMR, and it's called a small nuclear reactor, and that is something that can be made in a factory, right?
Yeah.
And it can produce 300 watts of power. As opposed to Hinkley Point, which costs 3,000 megawatt an hour. Megawatt hours they call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
For 3,000 quid, and so forth. Now we understand that Bill Gates' power stations upbid to build new nuclear reactors in Britain. So what they're going to do is put the money in for small SMRs, right?
Yes.
So what that means is 125 million. So you can say 3,000. If you've got 3,000 kilowatt hours from Hinkley Point, you only need what, 6 SMRs to have the same product, same output. You with me? If they come, they do 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
3, 10, 3,000. No, you need 10 of those small nuclear reactors to actually produce the kind of micro.
Right.
So that is a good thing if you're not too worried about nuclear reactors,
Okay.
which people are. Some people still are. I mean, I was invited to go to Germany about all this, and I went down one of the mines, and the time that nuclear waste takes to go away can be about 1,000 years. There was no final destination for nuclear waste that anybody's found, and that is worrying, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's like being caught on the bus eating an apple when you're not supposed to eat an apple. What the hell do you do with it? Yeah. Okay, Stuart, we've had a good hour session. We'll continue to look at the North Street Quarter, and Stuart will do his research, and he knows an awful lot of people in those. And I have to say that you've given him a vote of confidence this morning, because 1,700 people said that they knew him on television. And
No, I know you. I know what you're doing. Actually, you're just trying to boost my ego, aren't you?
No. I'll show you the graph in a minute. Just so that you know.
No, you keep saying to me, then you've been on television, people will know you. And I say, I go out into the street and loads of people say, hello, Stuart, I love your hat. And I haven't got a clue who they are.
I know my television, don't you worry. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll take another little break now.
Are there 1,700 people in Lewes?
Well, there's now.
Are you sure about this?
Well, I'll show you. All right, we'll say toodle pip, and we'll be back at about 10:30 for a final push towards our closing time of 11. So, Stuart, you've actually been really very busy and very hard working this last half an hour or so, because it is not easy digging out this stuff and then presenting it. So we'll take a short break and then we'll be back. But thanks very much for all that hard work. The only thing is we're going to tell you go forth and do some more of it.
What you learn as a journalist actually is research is everything, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Don't go into a debate without having done your research.
That's right. Otherwise, you'll get caught every time. Every time. Okay. Away we're going.
The other thing about, I just must finally say this. The first thing I learned was that nobody can keep a secret. Nobody can keep information to themselves. So what you do instead of going from A to B, say A asks question to B, you go from A to B to C to D and E. And every one of them gives you a different story. So you meld it down and eventually get the right story at the end of the day. All the tricks of journalism.
Right you are. We'll see you later. Toodle pip.